Pokemon is one of the most comforting game series for me to play. The formula of making your own team of little guys to go on a fun journey throughout the world never gets old for me, and even if I have issues with a few of the games and prefer some entries over others, I wouldn't call any of them outright terrible. Though I'd have to admit, when Pokemon Scarlet and Violet were announced at the beginning of 2022, I didn't think much of them, mainly because they were right off the back of the mediocre Diamond and Pearl remakes and the fun but flawed Legends Arceus. This would be the third mainline Pokemon game entry in the span of a year, so I wasn't paying much attention to the marketing after the initial reveal. I knew no matter what I was gonna buy the new Pokemon games at launch, especially considering Nintendo never does meaningful discounts on the first party titles, but I wasn't really expecting much. Speaking of that launch, oh boy, what a mess that's been. When a lot of people started reporting issues with the game's performance and a few glitches, I thought it was because of emulation, since a lot of people were playing leaked copies of the game early on their PCs, but unfortunately the game's launch has actually been messy from a technical perspective, with many players reporting crashes, frame rate issues, and other wacky problems with how the game runs. As for me, while I did have performance issues with the game's frame rate, which made certain areas feel like a slog to get through, I'd still say the game is playable as there were no major glitches I encountered. There are still glitches in the game though, which is worth noting. I'll talk more about what the technical issues mean near the end of the analysis, but I really dislike that my favorite gaming franchise has become the victim of the dreaded fix-it-later approach a lot of games have been doing since patches were normalized for mainstream gaming. For now, I'll focus on analyzing the contents of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because outside of that major talking point, I think these games have a lot of fun to be had in them. As usual with Pokemon, you open the game by picking your gender and skin tone, however now you can change your hairstyle at the beginning of the game, which is really cool, as character customization was my favorite addition that X and Y brought to the table, and was really fun to do in Sword and Shield thanks to the additional options, which helps make your journey feel like your own. However, what's lacking from those games is clothing options, as you have 4 set school uniforms and that's it. I get that your journey in this game is a school assignment, but also that's really lame compared to the wealth of fun clothing you could wear in Sword and Shield. After making your trainer, you're thrust into the opening segment of the game, and not gonna lie, while it did set up a lot of the story and thematic elements really well, I found it tediously long at times. There's a lot of stop and go, which I know Pokemon opening acts have a lot of, but I found this one especially annoying to play through. Luckily, the pacing improves dramatically once you're let loose to the open world of Paldea in the Treasure Hunt. The Treasure Hunt is an annual event at Paldea schools where students are encouraged to explore the world, train their Pokemon, and find their own treasure. This leads to our player character being pulled in 3 different directions by his friends. These are the 3 main quest lines of the game. You can choose to do in any order you want, though none of the missions scale to your level, so there's still a recommended order to do all the quests in, which is pretty disappointing and kinda reinforces my disappointment with Pokemon's lack of difficulty options. Even with the false freedom of the quest orders, exploring the immersive open world of Paldea is really fun with all the items to collect and Pokemon to see roaming around. It's made even more fun due to the box art legendary of the games acting as your rideable Pokemon bike that lets you further explore Paldea in fun ways. The Pokemon selection in Paldea is pretty solid with a lot of fun new mons to catch as well, from adorable little guys like Palmy and Fido, to new evolutions for older mons like Annihilate and Kingambit, to the funny rock crab Cloth, to my new favorite Pokemon ever, Lokix, who is just a giant show a Kamen Rider reference and I love him a lot. Shout out to all the artists making fan art of his designs as a Kamen Rider suit. You guys are awesome. Trainer battles are actually optional this time around, though I do suggest still doing them to make sure your Pokemon team is properly leveled, because there was a time in this game where I avoided a lot of the trainer battles and I was severely underleveled for the main quest. I still got through the game fine thanks to some clever tactics, but let that be a lesson to keep battling trainers. Speaking of battles, the main battle gimmick this time around is Teralization, which can change your Pokemon's type into one super strong version of any given type, which boosts any attack your Pokemon has of that Tera type. I found myself really liking this gimmick thanks to the extra strategic value it brings. You see, a lot of my Pokemon I used were dual types, so when I Teralized, it took away one of their assigned types in favor of one strong Tera type, which actually proved useful in avoiding super effective moves that would normally kill my Pokemon in one hit if it was dual typed. I think I prefer Z-moves and Dynamax over Teralization, but it sure beats out Mega Evolution. Now that we've discussed the core gameplay of Scarlet and Violet, I'm going to analyze what I like or didn't like about each of the plotlines of the game, starting with the Victory Road. Victory Road is the traditional gym leader quest every Pokemon game has, with your main rival for this quest being Nemona. She's basically Goku with how energetic and ready to fight she is, always encouraging you to get stronger. It's pretty cool that she's an experienced trainer who sees a lot of potential in you rather than being on the same level as you like other rivals of the series, but unfortunately her team composition didn't give that vibe. Only her characterization during dialogue does, though she's still a really fun character to fight and interact with on your quest to become a champion level trainer. As for the gym leaders you fight, they're just as well designed as ever and are brimming with character thanks to their writing and unique challenges you have to do before fighting them. You have such characters as a skilled artist, a popular internet streamer, a wife guy, a rapper, and a cool-headed snowboarder. A lot of variety and quality in this bunch of gym leaders. Also, special shout out to Rika of the Elite Four, who has one of the best character designs in Pokemon history. The second major questline you can do in the treasure hunt is the Path of Legends, where you help a fellow classmate named Arven hunt down titans that guard special herbs he's looking to cook a cure for his sick dog Pokemon Mabosniff. Arven's a really cool dude who really needs a hug due to the issues of his parents not paying much attention to him and later abandoning him when he was young. Arven's not the only important character in this arc, however, as you'll bond and upgrade your box art legendary throughout this questline, and I quite like the idea of making the box art legendary a lovable main character of the game instead of just part of the final stretch. As for the titans you'll fight, they're fine, just big versions of Pokemon you could fight throughout the game, though the False Dragon quest especially is really funny. The last of the three major quest lines is the Starfall Street, which features the game's primary antagonist team, Team Star, a bunch of dropout and delinquents of Padea's schools who've struck out on their own. Not gonna lie, this plot ends up being a bit convoluted, but it's all worth it for the charming characters you encounter. The star bosses bleed fun edginess from their sick designs, yet are quite tragically likable as seen from the various flashbacks you get after defeating one of them. Your assistant Clive is also quite funny, and Penny is just kid-friendly Futaba from Persona 5, which is okay by me. Unfortunately, the weakest aspects of these sections is the gameplay. You see, in the overworld you can send out your Pokemon to attack another Pokemon in an auto battle, and Team Star base raids are just dull auto battles. I didn't particularly feel challenged by any of them, just annoyed, which sucks because I actually like the traditionally formatted Team Star boss battles, especially when you have to fight the funny giant card Pokemon at the end of each one. Once all three of these plotlines are finished, they all collide together in the final part of the main story, Area Zero, and major spoiler warning from this point onward. If you really care about experiencing the awesome finale to this game for yourself, stop the video right here. Are we good? Alright, so as natural for Pokemon games, we have a final villain, and a lot of the recent games have been doing twist villains. Even in Starfall Street, there's a twist antagonist to it. So who could be the final villain of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's overall story? Well, it turns out it's the Professor, except not really. I didn't talk about them much, but they've been monitoring the box art legendary's progress throughout the game, and by this point they've asked us to investigate Area Zero, which lies at the crater of Paldea, which contains various Paradox Pokemon, time-displaced Pokemon from the past and future, which are brought here by the time machine the Professor created. This is where things start to get crazy, as when you meet the Professor in person, it turns out they're a robot installed of the original Professor's memory. The original Professor died a while ago to a Paradox Pokemon, and the robot Professor believes the time machine should be destroyed in order to prevent havoc to Paldea's ecosystem. However, the robot is programmed to protect the time machine at all costs, so you must unwillingly fight him to put a stop to the original Professor's experiments, and this fight is insane! The way the Professor moves, to their calculatingly edgy dialogue, to the battle theme which was worked on by Toby Fox of Undertale and Deltarune fame, it's just one of the best bosses in Pokemon history from every aspect. In general, the entire final act of this game goes nuts in the best possible ways. Seeing the friends and rivals you made throughout the journey come together to banter yet support each other is just so wholesome, especially for Arven, who has the most baggage here being the Professor's son. I love the dramatic insanity of the final plot twist, and finally getting to use your box art legendary as a proper Pokemon in the final battle is super hype. But in the end, as the Ed Sheeran song Celestial plays over the credits, I have to ask, what was the treasure we were seeking? Well, we know what our friends were, but what was our end goal of this journey? As the head of the Academy said at the beginning of the game, it's whatever you make it to be. Was it the friends you made, the Pokemon you caught, the fun you had, or simply helping others? Was it something more or less than those things? The treasures you value in life is what you make of it, and honestly I find that a really powerful message, especially for a franchise that's marketed itself over bonds and adventures you form with others, whether it be the digital creatures we catch or the real players we battle with. Despite all the technical issues, I freaking love Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. From the charming as hell characters, to the fun world to explore, to even neat little things like the pictures you get after completing a mission, there's so much love and fun I feel from these games, which is why the technical issues hurt me even more. Game Freak needs more time to develop these games to the best they can be, because at the moment, Scarlet and Violet are content complete, but are poorly optimized. These yearly releases for Pokemon are holding back well-designed, passionate games from reaching their true potential. I don't know if we'll see a change since Scarlet and Violet just had the biggest launch for a new game in Nintendo history, but I do hope the Pokemon Company realizes they can afford to take a year off the mainline video games so players can get better experiences moving forward. Maybe I'm being a dumb optimist about the whole situation, but hey, I can't change how I honestly feel. As is, I hope these games are properly patched so more people can experience how amazing they actually are.